Shane Orwood's day went from bad to worse the moment his phone slipped from his jacket pocket and shattered under a delivery truck's tire. "Dad, are we still going to the bookstore after?" Lily asked from the back seat, kicking her light-up sneakers against the passenger seat. He glanced at her through the rearview mirror, forcing a smile. "We'll see, Bug. Gotta figure some stuff out first." They were parked outside the community rec center, where Shane worked part-time coaching kids basketball. He'd been hustling extra shifts ever since Lily's mom left over a year ago, and with the rent climbing and his car making a weird crunching sound every time he turned left, the last thing he needed was to lose his only phone. He crouched beside the crushed screen, shaking his head. It was dead, and he needed to call his boss to let him know he'd be late. "Excuse me, do you have a phone I can borrow?" The voice was soft but clear, with a touch of curiosity in it. He turned and stopped. The woman standing there was dressed like she belonged in a fashion magazine. Cream silk blouse, long camel trench coat, high-waisted black trousers that looked like they'd cost more than his entire month's rent. But her expression wasn't snobby. No, she was smiling, looking down at his broken phone with genuine concern. "I just need to make a quick call," he said. "Mine's toast." She handed over her phone without hesitation. "Of course. Go ahead." He hesitated. "You sure?" She nodded. "I've got 30% battery and nowhere to be." He gave her a small, grateful smile and stepped away to dial his boss. She waited nearby, glancing occasionally at Lily, who had rolled down the window and was watching curiously. "I like your hair," Lily said, waving. "Thank you," the woman replied. "I like your sparkly shoes." Lily giggled. Shane returned, offering the phone back. "Thanks. That's saved me." "No problem. I'm Fallon." He raised a brow. "Like falling?" "Minus the G," she replied with a grin. "Fallon Trey." "Shane Orwood. This is my daughter, Lily." Lily chirped from the window. Fallon leaned down to wave.
Lily.
"You like books?" Lily nodded. "We were gonna go to the bookstore after Dad's work." "We're gonna," Shane muttered. "Now I gotta figure out how to replace a phone with -$60 in my bank account." Fallon tilted her head. "Can I help?"
No.
You just helped enough. I'm not gonna borrow your whole phone plan next." She laughed. "I didn't mean like that. I know a place nearby that sells refurbished phones cheap. I could drive you, if you want." He blinked. No one offered him rides, especially not women who looked like they belonged on billboards. "You don't even know me. You're a dad whose phone just got smashed. I think I'll survive." He glanced back at Lily. She was smiling, nodding like she already trusted Fallon completely. He exhaled. "All right, but you're officially a stranger doing a good deed." They walked to her car, her spaceship, a sleek black Tesla that made Shane stop in his tracks. "Are you sure you're not some kind of tech CEO?" he asked as she opened the door. She laughed again. "Nope. Just a woman with a good GPS." He didn't press. He didn't want to ruin the moment. The ride was quiet but not awkward. Fallon asked Lily about her favorite books. "Unicorn Detectives," she answered seriously, and Shane found himself watching Fallon more than he should have. She was beautiful, yes, but she was more than that. She listened. She laughed at Lily's jokes. She didn't flinch when Shane mentioned he was a single dad. They pulled up to a small electronic shop, and Fallon insisted on going inside with him. "Pick one. My treat." He froze.
No.
"Fallon, I can't," I offered. "You didn't ask." "I want to." He looked down at Lily, who was staring up at the shiny display of phones with wide eyes. Then back at Fallon. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," she said simply. He couldn't afford pride right now. He picked the cheapest model that still worked. Fallon paid, without blinking. As they walked out, she handed him the receipt. "It's yours. No strings." He shook his head. "I don't get you."
Good, she said.
Mystery makes it interesting. Back in the car, she asked, "Still want to go to the bookstore?" He turned to her, surprised. "You want to come?" Fallon shrugged. "I've got nowhere to be. And I like unicorn detectives." The three of them ended up at a secondhand bookstore, where Lily picked out 2 chapter books with glitter on the covers and Fallon bought them both without hesitation. Shane tried to argue, but Fallon just raised a brow. "I'm not trying to buy your approval," she said. "I just like doing nice things." She didn't make it feel like pity. She made it feel like kindness. That night, Shane stood in his tiny kitchen, reheating leftover spaghetti, while Lily read her new book at the table. He still had Fallon's number, saved from the call he'd made earlier. He hadn't called her yet. He didn't know what she was. A rich girl, slumming it for fun? A philanthropist? An angel? But she'd smiled at Lily like she meant it. She'd helped him without making him feel small. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something he didn't recognize.
Hope.
He picked up the phone and called her. Fallon answered on the second ring. "I was wondering if you'd call," she said, her voice smooth but slightly surprised, like she hadn't expected him to actually do it. "I figured I owed you at least a thank you." "You already said thank you. Twice." "Then maybe I just wanted to hear your voice again." There was a pause, then a quiet exhale. "So, what's next, Shane Orwood?" "I was going to ask you the same thing." They agreed to meet again with Lily, of course. She didn't go anywhere without him arranging care first, and he wasn't about to pawn her off just because a beautiful stranger had shown interest in him. The next afternoon, they met at a small outdoor fair on the edge of the city. Fallon arrived wearing jeans and a soft navy blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail, and no trace of the elegance she wore like armor the day before. Yet somehow, she looked even more stunning. "You're early," she said as she approached, carrying a paper bag of roasted almonds. "Lily dragged me out of the house like it was Christmas morning." Shane gave her a half grin. "She's already over by the carousel staring it down." "You don't do rides?" she asked, offering him a handful of almonds. He took one. "I do, but she likes to scope out the horses first." "Make sure she gets the one." Fallon glanced toward the carousel, spotting Lily circling it with intense focus. "She's got strategy. I respect that." As they strolled through the fairgrounds, Fallon didn't avoid the sticky pavement or the shrieking kids darting past them. She laughed when a bubble popped on her shoulder and didn't flinch when cotton candy got stuck to her sleeve. Shane noticed more than her reactions. He noticed how people looked at her. Even without designer clothes, she carried herself like someone used to making decisions that affected hundreds of people. Yet here she was, letting a 7-year-old lead her toward the balloon animals like it was the best part of her day. "You're not from around here, are you?" Shane asked as they waited in line for lemonade. Fallon tilted her head slightly. "What makes you say that? You don't flinch when people yell. You didn't ask about the neighborhood. You didn't even blink when that guy tried to sell you a glow stick for $20. "I've lived in worse places," she said simply. "And I don't scare easy." He handed her a lemonade. "Still doesn't answer the question." She took a long sip before replying. "I live in the city, Midtown." "That's not exactly next door." "Nope. Long drive just to hang out with a guy who broke his phone." Her gaze met his. "Maybe I wanted to see if the guy who borrowed my phone was worth a second look." Shane wasn't used to being looked at like that. Like he wasn't just passing time, but being chosen. They spent the next hour eating fried food and losing terribly at ring toss. Fallon insisted on winning Lily a prize and didn't stop until she walked away with a stuffed panda balanced on her hip like a trophy. "Okay, I'm officially impressed," Shane admitted. "You've got determination." "I run a company," she said lightly. "I don't quit." He raised an eyebrow. "What kind of company?" Fallon hesitated. "I own a few things," she said, almost evasively. "Real estate. A foundation. Some investments." He could tell she wasn't lying, but she wasn't laying it all out either. You're good at saying a lot without saying much. She shrugged. I've found it's better to let people figure out what they want to know. I'm not looking for money, if that's what you're thinking. I know. She said it without hesitation, and something about the way she didn't flinch just like earlier made him trust her a little more. As the sun dipped lower, Lily tugged on Shane's hand. Can we go on the Ferris wheel? He looked at Fallon. You afraid of heights? I'm afraid of missing out, she replied. They crammed into the tiny swinging cart, Lily between them, pointing out rooftops and pretending she could see all the way to the ocean. Fallon leaned back slightly, looking out at the skyline. The wind picked up, brushing a loose strand of hair across her cheek. I used to come to fairs like this when I was a kid, she said quietly. Before everything got complicated. Shane didn't press. Instead, he said, sometimes I wonder what Lily's going to remember. The good stuff, I hope.
She will.
Because she's got you. He blinked. You don't know me that well. I know what it looks like when someone shows up. You're there. That's everything. They sat in silence for a moment, the city stretching around them, the lights blinking on one by one like stars. Later, after Fallon hugged Lily goodbye and promised her a rematch at balloon darts, Shane walked her to her car. This time, he noticed the valet tag on the dashboard, the monogrammed driving gloves in the console, and the custom license plate that only someone with influence could pull off. You're not just wealthy, are you? He asked carefully. Fallon glanced at him, not apologetic, but guarded.
No.
I'm not. How wealthy? Enough that people usually don't talk to me like you do. He folded his arms. And how exactly do I talk to you? You don't calculate me, she said. You don't look for an angle. I don't have time for angles. She nodded slowly. That's why I called you back. He could feel the tension humming between them, not uncomfortable, but real. Like they were standing on the edge of something that neither of them had planned for. You sure you want to keep doing this? He asked. Are you sure you don't? Fallon didn't wait for him to answer. She slid into her car and rolled the window down. Same time next week. Shane gave her a look, one eyebrow raised. You making my schedule now? Only the fun parts. She drove off before he could say anything else. That night, after putting Lily to bed and washing the sugar off his hands, Shane stood by the window and stared out at the street. He thought about the woman who wasn't just rich, she was something else entirely. He wasn't just in over his head. He was starting to want more. 3 days later, Shane stood in the back hallway of Haven Academy, a private school nestled behind a row of iron gates and flowering magnolias. He hadn't come to gawk, though the courtyard alone looked like it belonged in a movie set, but because Fallon had insisted on introducing him and Lily to someone she knew for an opportunity. He'd almost said no. He didn't like favors he couldn't return. But Fallon didn't make the offer like it was charity. She'd said, plainly, just meet her. That's all I'm asking. So here he was, holding Lily's hand as she craned her neck to take in the stained glass windows and ivy-covered brick. Daddy, she whispered, this place looks like a castle. Don't get used to it, he replied under his breath, but with half a smile. Fallon appeared from one of the side doors, her coat trailing behind her as she walked briskly toward them. She looked different again, no glamour, just simple cream slacks and a navy blouse, her hair pulled into a twist at the nape of her neck. She looked like she belonged here. Shane felt the distance between them more sharply than ever. You made it, she said, her face lighting up when she saw Lily. I was starting to think you'd change your mind. I almost did, he admitted. This isn't exactly my scene. It's not about the scene. It's about possibilities. She turned to Lily. Are you ready to meet someone very cool? Lily nodded, gripping Shane's hand tighter. Fallon led them down a corridor to an office paneled in dark wood, where a woman in a burgundy blazer rose from behind an antique desk. She introduced herself as Dr. Marin Whiteley, the school's director of admissions. "You must be Lily," she said warmly. "I've heard wonderful things." Shane stared. "You told her about us?" "Just that I met a bright little girl who might need a different kind of place to grow," Fallon said simply. Dr. Whiteley smiled. "Fallon's name carries weight here, but we don't make exceptions unless the student deserves it. We'd still need Lily to do a shadow day and a small assessment, of course." Shane blinked.
Wait.
"You're saying she could come here?" "But this place costs more in a year than I make in 5. This place also has endowments, scholarships, and people who believe in investing in the right students," Fallon said gently.
Nostrins, sane.
"I wouldn't have suggested this if I didn't think Lily had something special. You barely know her. I don't need years to recognize brightness." Lily looked up at him, eyes wide. "Daddy, do they have a library here?"
Dr. Whiteley laughed.
"We have too." Shane cleared his throat. "We'll think about it." Fallon didn't press. She just nodded, as if that was all she hoped for. Afterward, they walked through the school's courtyard, where a fountain trickled beside an archway of climbing roses. Lily skipped ahead, chasing a squirrel with delighted squeals. "You're making this harder," Shane muttered, watching her. Fallon kept her gaze forward. "Why?" "Because you keep doing things like this. And I keep wondering what the catch is." "There isn't one. People like me don't just fall into people like you." She stopped walking. "That's funny, because lately, I've been wondering if I fell into you." He turned to her, not sure how to answer. Fallon continued. "I've been courted by men who own islands, Shane. Men with private jets and tailored intentions. But not one of them has ever looked at me the way you do. I don't even know how I look at you. Like I'm real." He swallowed. "You are real, but you're also a world apart. I don't want to be." He broke away from her gaze, watching Lily dance near the hedge line. Fallon stepped beside him. "Let me help. Just this once. With the school. With whatever she needs." He looked at her. "What if I can't return it? Ever?" "Then you don't." "Not everything has to be balanced. That's not how I was raised." "I know. And that's part of why I want to be here." They stood in silence until Lily returned, breathless, cheeks pink. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Shane hesitated, but Fallon knelt beside Lily. "If your dad says yes, then I'll make sure you get the best chocolate muffin in the whole school." Lily beamed. Later that evening, after Shane had tucked her into bed, he stood in his kitchen staring at the tax paperwork he hadn't had the courage to open for weeks. The corners were dog-eared, the ink smudged. He didn't have the answers. He barely had a plan. But then he remembered Fallon, standing in the courtyard, offering help without demanding anything in return. Not pity, not control, just an open hand. He picked up the phone and dialed. When she answered, her voice was quiet. "Hey. I can't promise anything," he said. "I'm not asking for promises. But if Lily goes to that school, she'll have a chance I never did. I know. And if I mess this up with you, you won't." He stopped. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen what it looks like when people fake it. And you're not faking anything." He leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. "This scares me." "It scares me too." That night, as he stood watching the city lights blink through the blinds, Shane realized something had shifted. Not just with Fallon, but inside him. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was beginning to want a future. And for the first time, he could actually see one. The first time Shane saw Fallon cry, it wasn't over anything dramatic. It was over a child's drawing. Lily had spent the whole afternoon bent over her crayons at the kitchen table, tongue poking from the corner of her mouth in concentration. When Fallon arrived just after sunset with a bag of carry-out from a Thai place Shane had never heard of, Lily presented her with a picture, as if it were an award. Fallon knelt beside her, unfolding the paper slowly. It was a drawing of the three of them, Lily in the middle, holding both their hands. Above them was a banner that read, "My family." Fallon blinked once. Then again. "Do you like it?" Lily asked, tilting her head. Fallon reached out and gently pulled her into a hug. "I love it." Shane watched from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, heart thudding against his ribs. Fallon wiped the corner of her eye quickly with the back of her hand. She didn't try to hide it. She didn't need to. After Lily had gone to bed, the two of them sat on the couch in the darkened living room, the only light coming from the soft glow of the street lamp outside. Fallon leaned back, legs tucked under her, the paper still folded carefully in her lap. "I wasn't supposed to want this," she said quietly. Shane turned to her. "Want what?"
This.
"A kid's drawing. A man who makes me laugh. A kitchen that smells like noodles and crayons." She looked over at him. "I built a life so far above real things that I forgot what they felt like." "You didn't forget," he said. "You just weren't in the right place to see them." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My father never let me forget where I came from, or where I was expected to stay." He hadn't heard her speak about her family before. Not directly. "He's still around?" She shook her head once. "Past 2 years ago. Left me everything. The companies, the foundation, the board seats. But not a single photo of us together. Not one." Shane sat forward, elbows on his knees. "That's a hell of a legacy." He used to say emotions were liabilities. That affection clouded judgment. He said love costs leverage. That's a sad way to live. It's a lonely one. She turned toward him fully now, legs brushing his. "You're not afraid of vulnerability. I envy that." "I'm terrified of it," he said. "I just learned early that hiding it didn't make it go away." Her hand found his between them, fingers curling slowly around his. "I want this, Shane. I want something that isn't bought or scheduled or filtered through a boardroom." He didn't respond with words. He leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, grounded, and full of everything they'd tried not to say out loud. Her lips were warm, tasting faintly of lemongrass and something sweeter. Her hand slid up to his jaw, anchoring him there. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I think I fell for you the second Lily offered me a friendship bracelet," she whispered. "She offers those to everyone. She said mine was special." "You believed her?" "I did." They sat like that for a while, silent in the kind of closeness that didn't demand anything. 2 weeks later, Fallon invited them both to a gala. Shane nearly said no. He didn't own a tux. He didn't belong in a marble ballroom with chandeliers the size of compact cars and champagne flutes made of actual crystal. But Fallon had taken care of all of it, without making it feel like a transaction. The tux had been tailored for him and delivered with a handwritten note that simply read, "You belong." Lily stayed with Fallon's housekeeper, a warm woman named Marta who had experience with children and insisted on baking cookies as a bedtime snack. Shane had checked in twice before Fallon even picked him up. At the gala, Fallon was radiant in a sleek navy gown that shimmered subtly under the lights. She wore no necklace, no earrings, just the quiet confidence of a woman who knew exactly who she was and didn't need to prove it. People whispered when they entered, of course. Shane wasn't oblivious. He saw the double takes, the discreet glances. The fact that Fallon had brought someone who clearly wasn't from their world. But she never let go of his arm. Not once. They danced only once, toward the end of the night, when the music slowed and the lights dimmed. Her hand fit against his shoulder like it belonged there. His palm rested against the small of her back, grounding her. They didn't speak during the dance. They didn't need to. Afterward, they stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city. The skyline was quiet, twinkling. Fallon leaned into him, hair stirring in the breeze. "I've decided," she said, her voice low. "About what?" "I'm stepping down from the board." He turned to her. "What?" I'll keep the foundation. That's mine. But the rest? It's not who I am anymore. He studied her carefully. You sure? I want to build something different. Something that feels like that picture Lily drew. I don't have much to offer. You have everything I want. He exhaled, brushing his thumb along her jaw. You're not afraid anymore. She smiled. I'm still terrified. But I'm choosing it anyway. 3 months later, on a sunny morning in early spring, Fallon stood in front of a crowd of reporters and formally announced her transition out of the corporate world. Shane watched from the back, Lily on his shoulders, her arms around his head. Fallon didn't mention him. She didn't have to. The next weekend, in a quiet ceremony beneath the same magnolia trees that had once guarded Haven Academy's gates, Shane married her. There were no fireworks.
No celebrity guests.
Just Lily, holding a bouquet bigger than her face, Fallon in a simple white dress with a blue ribbon tied at her waist, and a promise whispered between them that this was only the beginning. He'd lost his phone that day in the parking lot, but he'd found something better. A life he never saw coming, and a love he finally believed he deserved. The late May sun filtered through the kitchen window, catching the edge of Fallon's engagement ring as she poured Lily a glass of orange juice. The light refracted through the diamond, scattering tiny rainbows across the marble countertop. Lily, now settled into her new school routine, was telling Fallon about a project she'd been assigned, something about building a miniature version of a city library using only cardboard and glue. Shane leaned against the doorframe, watching them.
His wife. His daughter.
His home, because that's what it had become. Not just the house they now lived in, which Fallon had insisted be something they chose together. He vetoed anything with more than 3 bathrooms. She vetoed anything with gray walls, but the life they'd built inside of it. You're going to need a lot of glue, Fallon said, handing Lily a napkin as orange juice threatened to spill over the edge. And probably some backup cardboard. I already asked Marta to save the cereal boxes, Lily replied, beaming. She's 3 steps ahead of me, Shane said, walking over to kiss the top of Lily's head. Marta's practically the mayor of this house. Fallon's eyes met his briefly across the kitchen island, a quiet look of agreement passing between them. She'd kept Marta on after they'd married not because she didn't want to handle things herself, but because Marta had become part of the family. Lily adored her, and Fallon respected her loyalty and wisdom. Later that afternoon, Fallon sat in the sunroom sorting through updates from the Foundation's education initiative. Shane stepped in, holding a large manila envelope. This came for you, he said, handing it to her. Fallon opened it slowly, then paused. It's from the city council. They approved the grant for the literacy outreach program. He sat beside her, scanning the letter. You've been pushing for that for months. I didn't think they'd actually do it, she said, then corrected herself. No, I did. I just thought it would take longer. You're giving thousands of kids access to books and tutoring. They'd be fools not to say yes. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. You always make it sound simple. It is. You care, Fallon. People see that. She let the silence wrap around them. There was no rush to fill it anymore. No compulsion to prove they belonged in each other's lives. That part had settled. That weekend, they drove out to the countryside. Fallon had arranged for a short getaway, nothing extravagant, just a quiet weekend on a vineyard with a guest house and wide-open skies. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat before they'd even left the city limits, her favorite book clutched against her chest. Do you ever miss it? Shane asked as they turned off the highway. The boardrooms. The power plays. The headlines. She didn't answer right away. I think I missed the version of me I thought I had to be. But not what I gave up to become her. And now, she said, glancing at him, I don't feel like I'm performing. I don't have to. Not with you. The vineyard was peaceful, dotted with lavender bushes and rows of grapevines that curved over gentle hills. They spent the afternoon walking the trails, Lily running ahead with a small camera, determined to capture a photo of a butterfly to show her class. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep in the guest room and the stars blanketed the sky, Fallon and Shane sat on the porch wrapped in a shared blanket, sipping wine from mismatched glasses. "I was thinking," she said, her voice low, "we never really had a honeymoon." "We've been kind of busy," he replied, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "I don't need Paris or the Maldives. I just want more nights like this." He kissed her softly, slowly, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything except presence. "We'll have as many as you want," he whispered against her lips. A month later, Fallon stood on the steps of the new community library, hand in hand with Shane as she gave a brief speech. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small by design. She didn't want press or fanfare. Just the local kids, a few teachers, and the satisfaction of seeing something tangible come to life. Lily sat in the front row, holding the same drawing she'd given Fallon months ago. She'd added one new detail, a blue ribbon above their heads that read "Forever." In the weeks that followed, they settled into a rhythm. Shane started coaching a youth league again, this time with better funding thanks to a grant Fallon helped secure. Fallon took on a mentorship program, personally guiding young women interested in nonprofit work. Lily thrived at school, her confidence blooming in ways Shane hadn't dared to dream of before. One evening, Fallon sat at the kitchen table while Lily worked on her latest project, and Shane cooked dinner something with too much garlic, if her nose was right. Lily looked up suddenly. "Can I ask something?" "Of course," Fallon said, setting down her tablet. "Are you going to be my mom forever?" Fallon's chest tightened. She reached over, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. "Forever and ever." Lily nodded once, satisfied, and returned to her crayons. Shane turned from the stove, catching Fallon's gaze. He didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. Later that night, Fallon stood in their bedroom, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. Shane came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You ever think about how this all started?" he asked. "A smashed phone and a stranger with a Tesla." He chuckled. "Still can't believe I got in that car." She turned to face him, her fingers lacing behind his neck. "Still can't believe you kissed me in a parking lot 2 weeks later." "I'd do it again right now if you ask." She leaned in, her breath warm against his lips. "Then what are you waiting for?" They kissed, not like the first time or the second, but like every moment that had brought them here was folded into this one, 1,000 promises wrapped in silence. They didn't need more. They had all they ever wanted. The next morning, Lily placed her drawing on the fridge. She'd added one last touch, a heart above their heads. Shane looked at it, then at Fallon, who was sipping her coffee quietly beside him. "You know," he said, "she got the heart proportions just right this time." Fallon nodded. "Because now she knows what it means."
So, did he?
"And this time it wouldn't break."